If I pick up the drinks everyone requested, I'll finally get a chance to rest. But for now, I need to keep going. Interestingly, the left side of my body hasn't moved freely since my sophomore year when I was on the high school softball team. One day, on my way to a match, I was involved in a car accident. The details are fuzzy, but that day altered the course of my life. Although rigorous rehabilitation allowed me to walk again, my left side stayed partially paralyzed, making my cane an essential companion. It was hard to imagine then that I'd rely on a cane at such a young age. Yet, once I embraced this new reality, I found ways to adapt and make things work. After buying drinks for everyone, I returned to the meeting spot, expecting my family to be waiting, but they were nowhere to be seen. Confident I was in the right place, I set the drinks down on a nearby sofa and scanned the area. They weren't there. Instead, they were halfway through the security screening. My father had taken care of our plane tickets, and his being screened without me meant I was going to miss our flight. Resigned, I called him. His response was quick and dismissive. "Oh, I completely forgot about you. Just drink what you bought and head home whenever you want." The call was brief, and just like that, I was left behind. Being overlooked wasn't new to me. My parents and sister, Arlette, often treated me this way. "You've become so calm lately, haven't you? Maybe the accident did something to your brain," they'd joke. I used to be quick to anger, but since the accident, I've felt different, more detached, as if the dramas of life were unfolding at a distance. The doctor tried to explain the emotional impacts of my trauma, but I barely remembered his explanations. Looking back, I realized I'd never play softball again, something I had passionately dedicated myself to. Most might feel despair in such moments, but I didn't. Instead, I found myself thinking, well, what now? It felt like I was dealing with someone else's issues. So, when I was forgotten at the airport, I wasn't upset. I promptly went to the airline counter to sort out how I could still get to my destination. The staff there was incredibly helpful, assisting with everything from luggage to boarding. Though I missed my initial flight, I didn't let that stop me. I quickly secured a spot on the next available flight and updated the hotel about my delayed arrival. My journey continued, undeterred by the setbacks, driven by a newfound resilience and a calm acceptance of life's unpredictable twists. I never planned to cancel my trip. Backing out just wasn't in the cards for me. Honestly, returning home seemed like more hassle than it was worth. Despite the added expense, I was determined to reach my goal, especially after coming this far. With the airport staff's excellent assistance, I breezed through the security check and was escorted to the boarding gate, where they also helped with my luggage. As I settled near the gate, enjoying a moment of peace, my smartphone erupted with a flurry of calls. The missed call log grew alarmingly. Wow, that's a lot of calls. It's a bit overwhelming. "Everything okay, Mom?" "Oh, sorry, here's my ticket." "Yes, everything's fine, thanks." Yeah, managing the phone with a cane is a bit tricky. I'll return these calls once I land. Thanks for asking." Despite the peculiar interaction, I pocketed my phone and boarded the plane. I informed the helpful airport staff that I would make my return calls upon arrival, which seemed like a manageable plan. Settling into my designated seat, I switched my phone to airplane mode, which had been buzzing nonstop, and decided to enjoy the flight. 3 hours later, I landed safely and found a bench at the baggage claim to wait for my luggage. Time to return those calls, I thought, turning off airplane mode. To my astonishment, my phone displayed over 100 missed calls, a new record for me. Calls from Dad, Mom, and even my rarely communicative sister, Arlette, totaled up to 105. Maybe I'm more important to them than I thought, I mused. "Hello, Dad, what's going on? Why all the calls?" I inquired. "Where are you now? You didn't head back home, did you?"
"Good. Come here quickly."
"Everything's a mess. The hotel tried to charge us way more than expected, and they say you're somehow involved. It's all confusing. Please hurry. Our plans are a disaster without you," he replied, his tone urgent. "Got it. I'll be there as soon as I grab my luggage." "Wait for me," I said, ending the call. After collecting my bags, I ambled towards the taxi stand, feeling a mix of emotions. It was perplexing. Dad, who had seemed to forget about me earlier, was now urgently seeking my help as soon as his plans went awry. With no real urgency, I slowly approached the taxi, where the driver promptly assisted with my bags. "Mom, let me help you with that," I offered. "Thank you. Could you put it in the trunk?" she asked. As the driver loaded my luggage, I felt a sincere gratitude for the kindness of strangers, which stood in stark contrast to my family's recent indifference. "To the Royal Bayside Hotel, please," I directed the driver. "Did you travel alone?" he asked, possibly sensing my situation was unusual. "Yes, that's right. I was supposed to be with my family, but there was a misunderstanding," I explained briefly. "That sounds tough," he empathized. I smiled wryly. "Well, I don't feel obligated to cover for them." I knew explaining everything to the taxi driver wouldn't change my family dynamics, so I settled back, ready to face whatever awaited me at the hotel. Growing up in my family felt like living under a strict regime. From a young age, I sensed a significant difference between my household and those of my peers. My parents were demanding, possibly because of my father's background as a professional and well-known softball player. He often voiced his expectations for me, proudly declaring at school functions, "Flora, you're going to surpass me. You have a natural talent. You must become a great player."
Can you do that?
His words were backed by my mother's similar sentiments, though she often lamented my academic struggles, saying, "You've inherited your father's excellent athletic skills, but aren't you bad at studying? It would have been nice if you had taken after me in that aspect." My dad would then chime in, "If you had been more like your mom, you might have more options. But you're like me, not good at studying. That's a problem. You have to work hard to become a better professional softball player than me." Both parents agreed that having their talents was natural for me and expected nothing less than excellence. This prideful atmosphere at home meant constant pressure to excel, at least in one thing, pushing me toward extraordinary efforts every day. As a child, I took these comments at face value, not fully grasping their true intention, which as an adult, I recognized was more about fulfilling their own egos than nurturing my interests. Throughout my schooling, from elementary through high school, my parents tightly controlled my schedule, insisting that any free time be devoted to training or practicing softball. My personal desires were completely overlooked, and I grew up to be an obedient child who adhered strictly to my father's directives. Reflecting on my childhood and adolescent years, the dominant memories are of softball practices, games, and intensive training sessions. Other than that, I recall a harsh home environment where no amount of effort seemed enough to earn praise. By middle school, I was perpetually irritable, like a kettle ready to boil over. I couldn't pinpoint exactly what made me so angry. I just knew I disliked everything. Frequent arguments with my sister Arlette, who played her games next to me while I trained, were common.
Stop that, Flora.
"Why would you hit her?" My mom would scold me when Arlette's activities disrupted my focus. "She has her room. She should play there. Why does she have to play right next to me?" I would retort. Our household was constantly tense. During my rebellious phase, I clashed often with my dad. "What was with today's game?" A pitcher returning like, "That is the worst, Flora. Don't act so high and mighty when you can't do it yourself," he'd criticize after a game. If I talked back, the situation would escalate quickly. "Say that one more time," he'd challenge, and disagreements would often lead to him hitting me. Objectively, my family environment was far from normal. Dominated by anger and excessive pride from my parents, I had no real freedom. Despite this, as a child, I felt obliged to meet their high expectations. Even when I advanced to high school, nothing changed. It was all about practice and more practice, with no room for anything else in my life. Growing up, even the simple joy of eating what I liked was off limits. I was on a strictly controlled nutritional plan and treated more like a piece of sports equipment than a person. Despite this, I relentlessly strived to live up to my parents' lofty expectations. To an outsider, my everyday life could have seemed unbearable, and unexpectedly, it came to a halt. On my way to a softball match, I was hit by a truck while crossing at a green light. The accident was severe. My bike was utterly destroyed, a stark testament to the crash's intensity. Witnesses were deeply shocked, and the police noted their distress. Miraculously, I survived, but the accident left me with a permanent disability on my left side. This incident dramatically changed my perspective. No longer able to meet the athletic expectations of my parents, I surprisingly found myself devoid of despair or sadness. Everything felt inconsequential, and I found it difficult to engage deeply with any thoughts or emotions. While recovering, I overheard a distressing conversation between my parents. "She's finished. Her path as a softball player is over. But we still have Arlette. Unlike Flora, she excels in everything, not just academics and sports, but in other areas too." This moment was pivotal. I realized my parents' true priorities. It burst something inside me, a realization more profound than fear or anger. These two are wrong, I thought, marking a profound shift in how I viewed them and their parenting. Post-accident, my parents transferred their intense expectations to Arlette, and I carried a sense of guilt toward her because of it. Fast forward to the present, I had just arrived at the destination hotel. The taxi driver unloaded my luggage with care. "Have you forgotten anything? Need help to the lobby?" he kindly offered. "Oh no, thank you. I can manage myself," I replied, appreciating his warm demeanor as I entered the hotel. Inside, a voice called out, "Sis, you finally made it." It had been ages since anyone called me that. It was Arlette, rushing over to help with my luggage. "Really, Dad is the worst, isn't he? Don't worry about the plane. At least you're here now. Aren't you tired?" The familiar faces of my family greeted me, yet they seemed like entirely different people, their mannerisms strangely artificial. As we approached the front desk, the commotion caught the attention of Walker Perry, the manager of the Royal Bayside Hotel. "Miss Flora, welcome. It's great to see you doing well. If there's anything you need, please don't hesitate to ask," he greeted us warmly. I responded with a light-hearted, "I couldn't possibly impose that much." Walker then mentioned his son, Jacob, who had arrived a day earlier. "Jacob was looking forward to meeting you. I wish he'd take his studies more seriously, but he perked up when he heard you were coming." "I'll go even if I have to take a break," he insisted. Walker's familiarity hinted at our long-standing connection. Indeed, Jacob and I were not only former classmates but also teammates from middle to high school. I had a slight hand in managing the hotel as well, a fact known to few but significant in its own right. Even when I was confined to a hospital bed, unable to rise, Jacob visited daily without fail. He was a true friend, keeping me connected to school life and maintaining our friendship as if nothing had changed, even after doctors said I'd never play softball again. His support was unwavering during my rehabilitation. He'd often say, "If you need anything, just let me know. I'm here to support you fully." But interestingly, Jacob also shared his troubles with me regularly, making our interactions quite unique. During one of these visits, he mentioned that the hotel managed by my father was struggling. Although I was still battling with limited mobility, this sparked my interest, and I began to study various subjects more out of boredom than anything else. Jacob, always perceptive, noticed this. "Are you projecting yourself and your dad onto each other?" he asked one day, his intuition often strikingly accurate, which could be a bit unsettling. "Yes, I've been studying marketing," I admitted, though I was only just scratching the surface and didn't fully grasp it yet. Jacob, curious, wondered, "What's marketing exactly?" Explaining briefly, I related it to sports. "It's like securing a starting position on a team. You have to sell yourself and showcase your strengths." Jacob suggested I talk directly to his dad once I was a bit better. "I really don't get the complicated stuff, and frankly, it's a hassle to relay it. You should explain it directly." This candid admission led to my introduction to Walker, his father, once I was discharged. Despite my ongoing recovery, Walker and I had many productive discussions about the hotel's management strategy. Our collaborative efforts soon paid off, with the hotel gaining popularity, trending on social media, and seeing a significant uptick in guest traffic. "I can't thank you enough," Walker often said, impressed by the business strategies we developed. "You're so young, yet you think of such excellent ideas." His gratitude was genuine, and he even invited me. "Once you get well, please visit our hotel." That's the plan, I responded with a hopeful smile, though Walker's expression was more complex. Through these efforts, I found a new purpose: to visit the hotel I had helped turn around. This goal became a driving force in my life, motivating me through the grueling rehabilitation process. Thankfully, my condition improved steadily, allowing me to walk short distances on my own. Upon finally arriving at the hotel, Walker didn't lead me to a guest room as expected, but to his office. "There's something I need to confirm," he said intriguingly as we walked. Meanwhile, the front desk staff handled my luggage, directing it to the room I had booked in this formal and grand hotel. This was a new, unfamiliar setting for me, but it was filled with potential and a sense of achievement. The hotel room was surprisingly cozy, a sharp contrast to the tension that had unfolded upon my arrival. Walker, the hotel manager, inquired about the discrepancies in my family story regarding my late arrival. "I could overlook it," I remarked casually when Walker probed for clarification. "What exactly do you mean by that?" Walker asked, his tone curious yet cautious. "Well," I began, "they claimed they were thirsty and sent me to fetch drinks. Due to my slower pace, by the time I returned, they had already moved on to the security checkpoint without me." Walker's expression hardened slightly, the gravity in his voice palpable. "Already? That's quite convenient. They assumed going through security first would save time," I explained. Walker addressed them directly, his calm demeanor sharpening. "You do realize one cannot pass through security without their ticket?" My father fumbled with his words. That was my mistake. I thought I had handed Flora her ticket." As my parents stumbled through their explanations, Walker cut them off. "It seems your demeanor changed once you knew of my connection with Flora. Initially, you were quite assertive with the front desk staff." "Well, about that, they started, but," Walker continued, "your daughter's contributions have transitioned our hotel into an exclusive private club. New members typically pay a $32,000 initial fee on the day they register. That's different from what we initially understood." My mother interjected softly. "I need to speak plainly here," I said, addressing Walker with respect but firmness. "It's difficult for me to understand how parents could treat a child who has faced and overcome so much with such indifference. It doesn't seem fitting for any parent who truly values their child. Our family issues are ours to handle. It's not your place to judge," my father retorted sharply. Walker nodded in acknowledgement. "Understood." However, I felt it necessary to clarify my earlier comments. He turned back to my family, his stance resolute. "The special membership offer was extended in gratitude for Flora's efforts. It was meant for her alone. Your actions towards her do not reflect the values we cherish here." Conclusively, he stated, "I must ask you to leave immediately. We will continue to extend our hospitality to Ms. Flora Martin alone. Please refrain from using our services in the future." Security personnel, imposing yet discreet, appeared and escorted my family out. Once alone, Walker apologized to me. "I hope you accept our sincere apologies for any disrespect shown. There are principles from which we cannot deviate." I chuckled lightly, dismissing his concern. "It's fine. It changes nothing for me." Walker seemed puzzled. "And what does this mean for you?" Reflecting for a moment, I smiled. "It means I'm free. This situation hasn't shocked me. Rather, it confirmed that being with or without them doesn't affect my happiness. I think I'm ready to explore life on my own after a little while here." It was a new idea, one I wasn't entirely committed to yet, but it was appealing and untroubling. That had been my underlying feeling all along. As we left the office, the security team discreetly escorted me to my room. One of them remarked, "It's an honor to have you here, the person who played a key role in saving our hotel." Their recognition was a sweet reminder of my newfound independence and the respect I had earned on my terms. I had somehow expected someone older to greet me at the hotel. Sorry if I didn't meet your expectations," I joked, unable to hide my surprise. The staff member chuckled warmly. "Not at all. We have the manager's approval, and during your stay, we're dedicated to supporting you wholeheartedly. Please let us know if there's anything you need." The enthusiasm seemed overwhelming, almost too intense. It felt as if the entire hotel staff was aware of my backstory. I was greeted with polite nods and eager handshakes, which I found quite perplexing and a bit overwhelming. Noticing my discomfort, the security team, clad in black like bodyguards, subtly shielded me from the overzealous staff. Just as I settled onto the sofa, hoping for a moment of peace, there was a knock at the door. I thought I was finally going to have some rest. Yes, come in, I sighed. A familiar voice followed. Hey, best friend, how's it going? Jacob. Wow, it's been a while. I guess you took time off just for me? You should feel grateful, I teased. You just wanted a break from school, didn't you? I countered, knowing him too well. Don't point that out, hey? I heard your parents left you at the airport. That's hilarious. It's seriously a funny story, right? They really did leave me. I'm just glad I didn't end up at the lost and found. Imagine, Flora Martin from so-and-so is at the lost and found. Please come pick her up. That would be a riot, Jacob joked, trying to lighten the mood. Stop it. I'm laughing so hard it's making me even more tired, I said, a genuine laugh escaping me despite the fatigue. Reuniting with my best friend like this was refreshing, making the weariness of travel and the drama with my family momentarily melt away. Softball had been my whole world, and when I thought I had lost that part of my life, it felt as though I'd lost my purpose. Throughout this, Jacob was the only one who consistently treated me like Flora Martin, not just another high school student or a potential softball prodigy. It was odd but incredible how he introduced me to his hotel manager father, who actually listened to the ideas of an inexperienced amateur like me. Few would take a high school student's plan seriously, especially one aimed at reviving a nearly bankrupt hotel. But there was a genuine trust between Jacob and his father, and it seemed they both genuinely cared about me. I was incredibly lucky to have such a friend. The afternoon was peaceful as I reflected on these thoughts. My stay at the hotel was initially planned for just a week. However, life had other plans. I've been enjoying the single life for a while thanks to some complicated job posting rules, but having you here, Flora, has been a big help, Jacob admitted one evening. Why is that, I wonder? I mused. I'm now living with Walker. At first, he seemed very formal and strict, but at home, he's surprisingly easygoing and warm. Rely on me more. Think of me as your father if that helps, he suggested one day, almost like a confession. It startled me at first, but living with him turned out to be surprisingly comfortable. He never imposed, always maintaining a calm demeanor that made it incredibly easy to feel at home. Then, changing the subject slightly, Jacob mentioned, I heard through the grapevine, Flora, feel free to ignore this, but your sister seems to have been rejected for a school recommendation. News travels fast, huh? Apparently, her bad attitude was witnessed by other people. I didn't know the details, but it was clear that life was swiftly moving forward, full of unexpected turns and new beginnings. It seems my sister's recent troubles have stirred quite a bit of drama. Her club activities, school grades, and friendships are all faltering. Is it karma, maybe? Jacob joked lightly during one of our chats. Are you enjoying her misfortune? He asked, noticing my nonchalant response. No, not really, I replied, shrugging slightly. You sound quite detached, even though it's about your own sister. They say the opposite of love is indifference, Jacob remarked, half teasing, half serious.
Ooh, scary.
I'd better work hard not to be thought of that way, he laughed, changing the subject. By the way, is today's meeting at 5 p.m.? Yes, that's right. I confirmed. I've arranged for a ride, so don't worry about it. Currently, I'm enjoying the freedom of working as a freelancer, not tied down to any particular organization. This independence allows me to continue my work in a way that feels liberating and fulfilling. Living with Walker has turned out to be a peculiarly delightful arrangement. It's like having a new family where I can be myself without any pretenses. Jacob plans to visit again by the end of the year, and while I look forward to our time together, I know I need to remind him to keep the noise down at night to ensure Walker can rest well. Living this way, balancing personal freedom with the comfort of a makeshift family, has brought an unexpected contentment to my life, and I cherish every moment of this unique journey.